Beyond this gate in the sand, there's more sand. The man on the right hopes it'll be the sand that saves Africa, because of the trees now growing out of it. This is the start of the Great Green Wall in Senegal.
We'll try to put a plan in place to reverse the drift of the desert and allow people to better live from their land.
This is how that plan looks on paper. A 9-mile-wide band of trees stretching nearly 5,000 miles across 11 African countries, from Senegal in the west to Djibouti in the east. The trees are to protect the African dryland south of the Sahara Desert, a place called the Sahel, where humans are finding it harder to survive as the climate changes and the quality of the land gets poorer. The Great Green Wall wants to change that.
When trees are there, there's a whole life which organizes itself, the microbial life. The soil that builds up regenerates and gets richer, which allows other organisms to live, even if we don't see them.
The great vision of the Great Wall is that by putting trees here, life for the millions of Africans living behind them will be better.
Trees are what we call carbon sinks. They give off oxygen and absorb carbon gas. That will be a great thing for the interior of Senegal and therefore the capital, Dakar.
But before the Great Wall starts to work for Africa's big cities, it has to work in places like Widu Chinguli, about 200 miles northeast of Dakar. This village in the Sahel began planting Senegal's 340-mile stretch of the wall 5 years ago. A modest start for a project so ambitious the World Bank is promising nearly $2 billion to pay for it. The African Union and United Nations are also giving support. The gate leads to one of the Great Wall's plantation areas. This plot is 6.5 times the size of New York Central Park. It's a dry season, but when it rains, people say this area is completely green and so dense it's hard to walk. Moussa Dia lives close to the plantation. He barely makes a living raising a few sheep, but the Great Wall might change that. The gum arabic tree has been planted along Senegal's bit of the wall. The sap is used in many things, from chewing gum to fireworks. It's a new source of income for people like Moussa.
A day will come when the Great Green Wall will change the situation in the country for the better.
But it needs water to grow, and rainfall in the Sahel is low and in recent years has become unpredictable. Mary Harper writes about Somalia, where drought and famine 2 years ago showed the need for action. But even if nature cooperates, the humans who will be living next to the Great Wall might not.
Even if they understand the idea that planting trees in the long term could do wonders for their environment, they are held hostage by short-termism. They are living day to day, in fact sometimes hour by hour. So if they see a belt of trees, the first thing they're going to see is charcoal and firewood.
But the tricky business of surviving in the Sahel isn't the only reason why the Great Wall might not work. The trees have to cross countries with other problems.
You look at Niger, you look at Sudan, you look at Mali, you look at Chad. A lot of these regions either have rebel groups operating there, or they have weak, difficult governments.
Trees don't grow well on battlefields, but they do in peaceful Widu Chinguli. The people here need the Great Green Wall to work. If it doesn't, this land will get harder to live on. That's the message Senegal is giving, but progress on the wall in other countries has been much slower. In Widu Chinguli, they're hoping that'll change, to make sure this big African dream doesn't die in the sand.